Hey, what's up Relic fans? This is Buggo coming to you from the Relic head offices in Vancouver, British Columbia, and we are with Josh Mosqueira. And we are answering all your questions today from Relic News, Dawn War Sanctuary, and Something Awful. So Josh, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do as lead designer?
Awesome, right? So hi everybody, so as Buggo said here, I'm Josh Mosqueira, lead designer on Company Heroes. So as a lead designer, I actually have a pretty, honestly, I have probably the coolest job at the office. It really sort of involves a lot about, I'm sort of really responsible for the sort of overall sort of gameplay direction of the game, and that involves sort of like spending a lot of time sort of playing the single player game and sort of working a lot really closely with the designers and with the programmers and the artists to really create this really cool game with Company Heroes.
That's awesome. So how long have you been at Relic?
Been in Relic, I'm going into my 5th year, so I've been here since way back in the Homeworld 2 days. I was actually the lead designer on Homeworld 2. So I've been around for a while, and it's actually been really interesting to see like Relic grow from back then. We were a pretty small company. I think I was the 42nd person to work at Relic. So now we're like close to 200. So it's a pretty cool evolution.
So how big would you say your team is?
At the peak of Homeworld, at the peak of Company Heroes, I think we were over 100 people working on
So that's grown
Heroes.
Quite a bit then from the beginning.
Yeah.
Awesome. What would you say is needed to become a game designer?
I would say, alright, to become a game designer, you really have to understand games. That doesn't mean just, knowing how to play games really well, but you have to be able to sort of like look at games and understand what makes, what makes interesting gameplay, what makes accessible gameplay, and you got to sort of understand how to communicate those concepts to people.
Right.
Because what a game designer does 90% of the time is talk to people and try to explain gameplay concept to an artist or a programmer or a producer, and so you really need to be able to sort of articulate game concepts really well and sort of like talk in a way that people can sort of understand, sort of grasp the game concept.
Right, that makes sense. How is life and work at Relic? Want to maybe describe what a typical day would look like for you?
Sure. I mean, Relic's a really great place to work with. Like, first of all, I think we have a fun bunch of people we work with. Like, everybody sort of really, there's a really sense of team and a really sense of sort of community here at Relic. So we're all sort of like, we're all pretty ambitious, really passionate with the games we sort of work on. So it really sort of permeates the environment.
Yeah,
so like a typical day is really all about, as a lead designer, sort of my typical days sort of involves a lot of meetings, which could be kind of tiresome, but the fact that you're always trying to work out really cool concepts, interacting with the really cool artists and programmers and stuff like that. So all the meetings always sort of like really energetic and really positive, and we're trying to sort of figure out how to solve problems or how to sort of introduce a really cool new bit of gameplay. So a lot of meetings, a lot of sort of collaborative work. So I would spend my day sort of talking with the designers, reviewing missions, providing feedback, meeting with like the art director or lead programmer and the programmers to figure out how exactly we're going to make all this cool stuff happen. So.
Nice. How would you say the general design process is for Company of Heroes? What sort of steps do you go through as the game evolves and as you do make decisions to what goes in the game?
Sure. So I think the design process that we use on Company Heroes is one based on iteration. So generally we have a very sort of called a short conceptual phase. So we sort of all get together in a room and figure out, okay, we're trying to figure out how, let's say, how we're going to make medics really interesting in Company Heroes. So we sit around, sort of brainstorm a couple of ideas, and then we sort of figure out what's the simplest way we can sort of try to prototype this. Because it's one thing to spend like your days writing documents that basically nobody's going to read, or you can sort of go really quickly, come up with a few really simple things that you can start trying to do and put those in the game as quickly as possible and start playing them really quickly, and then you really start seeing what's actually working and what's not really working.
Right.
So we use the same process for single player missions, for example. Like we come together, we say, okay, we have a general idea. Let's say like mission 4, which we released for a demo, so like the counterattack for quarantine. To figure out, okay, what's the cool moment of this mission? I figured, well, it's a desperate defense. So if you have a bunch of paratroopers, then the Axe is going to come in and push you out. So instead of spending like hours or days coming up with an elaborate design, so okay, we have the basic idea. Let's put it into World Builder. Let's start scripting it out, and let's see how it evolves and how it actually how it sort of takes shape.
Right.
And sort of we review the mission every couple of days, and we sort of give comments and feedback to Aldrich's son, who was the designer on it, and slowly the mission sort of evolves, and then we sort of figure out what's really working, and we really try to focus on that. So again, a lot of playing the game, a lot of iterative process. That's our design process.
So you actually get in there and you actually make the level just sort of whatever you guys kind of decided off the bat, and then make the changes later?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
a lot of sort of like, basically like the more you play a mission, the more you play like multiplayer, the more you start seeing what's really working and not. You start continually building on that. So.
Awesome. So here's a specific question from the forums. Why was the population cap lowered in the beta? And they want to know if the full version will have a higher cap.
All right. So the population cap, obviously, there's a gameplay component to that. Obviously, we don't want players to control like sprawling armies where you really can't sort of focus on the tactical management. But population caps also play a big role in the performance of the game. So we went through a lot of permutations of how many, like just what the population cap in Company Heroes is going to be, and it was actually a bug in the initial beta that the population cap was a little higher than what was intended it to be. So we had to fix that for balance reasons as well. So is it a little too low? Probably, but I think what we have right now it's a good medium that allows players to sort of have a good mix of units without sort of spamming the map with a whole bunch of units. Again, because Company Heroes is not a game about amassing a huge army and just sort of like left clicking and then right clicking on the enemy and just rolling rolls on. It's about the tactical management of units.
Definitely. The staff at Relic News are actually coming to visit Relic in March, and they want to know what is the alcoholic shot of choice that you would like in March.
Oh my god. Jeez. I'm pretty cool with everything except Jägermeister.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
That's the one shot you don't drink?
No. Well, I would. I don't refuse a shot.
Right.
So I would drink it. But too many early parties at Relic were all about Jägermeister.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of like,
yeah.
I've evolved past Jägermeister.
Oh, okay. So if you had to pick one, which one would you say?
Being originally from Mexico, I have to go with tequila.
Very nice. That's actually one of my personal favorites too. So do you think that Company of Heroes will replace Dawn of War?
We hope not, because I think at Relic and when we sat down 3 years ago to sort of 5 years ago now to sort of figure out where we want to take the RTS genre, we sort of really believe in a sort of an evolutionary process. So each of our products is sort of designed to sort of take a step, or in the case of Company Heroes, a couple of steps, in evolving the RTS genre. So Dawn of War has a really important role to play in our plans and at Relic. So we don't necessarily see Company Heroes sort of eclipsing Dawn of War, but essentially giving players two different experiences inside the RTS genre, each sort of tailored to slightly different crowds and stuff like that.
Right, definitely. So what made you decide to jump on the World War II bandwagon in the first place?
We get asked that question a lot, and I think there's a number of reasons. I think the first one, at least for myself, and for a lot of the designers like Quinn Duffy, is there's a lot of really good potential in World War II. It's we're history buffs. Like I used to be in the Canadian military.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Okay.
So obviously, like Canada had a big part to play in World War II, and it's one of those conflicts that especially nowadays has a sort of almost like mythical component to it.
Right.
It's definitely there are clearly defined sides, and the technology also. Both the Axis and the Allies were pretty even there, so it actually allows us to sort of incorporate a lot of really cool ideas with gameplay. But more importantly than that, especially with a game that really focuses on real soldiers, environmental interaction, and especially environmental strategy, is World War II is a familiar setting. When people see a Sherman, they can sort of understand what the capabilities of a Sherman is. When you see the machine gun, they can sort of understand what a machine gun does. But they can actually start using their own sort of real-world assumptions of how things work and bring those into gameplay. And that actually really makes sort of COH a very sort of accessible game for people to get into.
So do you think that, a lot of people have said that World War II games are going out of fashion, or the market is too saturated? What do you think about that? Do you think that Company Heroes kind of breaks the mold?
I totally believe it. Yeah, I think one of our goals with Company Heroes was we wanted to create sort of like the definitive World War II RTS experience. And if you look at sort of like where the industry's taken World War II, before Medal of Honor, before Call of Duty, there were a couple of other World War II first-person shooters.
Right.
But now nobody thinks of those. Everybody thinks that if you want to play a World War II shooter, you pick up Call of Duty.
Right.
That's exactly what we want to do with the RTS spaces. So if you want to pick up a strategy game set in World War II, we want people to go right away and think of Company Heroes.
Awesome. Cool. So how much of your job would you say is technical as opposed to creative?
I would say now as a lead designer, it's mostly creative. It's with such a huge design team, like we have the largest design team at Relic. I think it's close to 12 designers working on it.
Wow.
They we had the single player guys working on the missions, the multiplayer guys working on balance and map creation and game mechanics. So I spent most of my time sort of just reviewing the games, sort of providing ideas, providing feedback. So it was actually kind of cool to really focus on the creative side of things, But I do miss the technical side of it. I miss being able to work on my own missions and sort of like actually put my imprint in the game.
Cool. With only 2 races, races in Company of Heroes, how do you think the game will stay interesting and dynamic?
Well, there's a number. We got this question asked a lot as when we were sort of developing the concept and the sort of focus behind the team-based aspect of Company Heroes. And the reason we decided to go with 2 armies is, first of all, it's really contextual to the experience, but also the introduction of the company commander system and the fact that there's a lot of sort of tactical management and sort of like the fact that these units are playing in very different ways. And the fact that every map, thanks to our structural environments, plays differently every time.
Right.
There's always something new to try out. There's a
sort of random and spontaneous, right?
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. So the fact that the armies, that there's only 2 at first, I think it's a good starting point.
Cool. At first, you say. So, are you maybe planning an expansion to Company of Heroes?
I really can't get into any sort of like details, but the only thing I can really say is when we started out Company of Heroes, what we wanted to create was what we call we wanted Company of Heroes to be a platform for us. So obviously we have these really grandiose plans of where we want to take Company of Heroes, and the game that's coming out tomorrow is sort of the first step in the plans that we have.
Awesome. So building on that, can we expect to see other countries? Will we see naval units? Will you ever have female troops? Supposing there was an expansion, would you like to see something like that? I would.
I think there's World War II is a type of setting for a game that basically there's just so much material there. You can do so many things. Like you have North Africa, you have the Eastern Front, you have the Pacific, you have British, you have Canadians, you have Italian troops. There's a wealth of material there that we can sort of tap into.
Definitely.
And I definitely want to see us sort of exposing a lot of that stuff.
All right, here's a very personal question. If there was a zombie outbreak in Vancouver, how would you personally prepare to survive the onslaught?
See, my true calling in life, I love being a game designer, but definitely when the zombies show up, whatever I'm doing, I'm stopping and devoting myself to zombie hunting. So I already have my baseball bats all set up. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what would be your weapon of choice?
Whatever's at hand.
Whatever's at hand.
Yeah, and preferably a blunt object.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you need a lot of sort of surface impact.
So maybe that's why, Company of Heroes is a little bit gory, a little bit on the realistic side, I guess. Yeah. All right, fair enough. I see where that comes from. So what single-player map do you like the most that you made?
Well, I didn't make any of them.
Okay.
Right, because we had a really cool single-player design team that sort of worked on them.
Right.
I have to say, I really like all our missions, but I think if I had to sort of pick my favorite ones, Mission 4. That's one of the reasons we chose it for the demo. It's just a really fun mission.
What map is that on?
That's Carentan.
Okay, right.
Carentan's Carentan. So, other really cool missions, like the final mission of the game, Chamois, is a really cool mission as well. It's
nice.
Huge, epic.
Don't spoil it for the
No. All I'm gonna say, it's huge, it's epic. You get to blow up a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of really cool strategy involved in it. So.
Nice. So what would you say was the biggest hurdle in making an authentic feeling World War II game, which was accessible to the general public at the same time?
I think the biggest hurdle is knowing when to draw the line between making a decision based on fun or making a decision based on accuracy or realism.
Right.
I think one of the pitfalls that a lot of other World War II strategy games fall into is they sort of lose themselves to the details. They sort of focus a lot on, making sure that all the ballistics are properly modeled and all that kind of stuff. And they sort of assume that players know all that kind of stuff.
Right.
What we want to do with Company Heroes is, just like when you're sitting down watching Saving Private Ryan and Band of Brothers, you don't need to know what the difference between a Thompson or an MG42 is. You just know that an MG42 is probably going to, butcher your guys if you want.
Right.
So that's the kind of decision we always try to prepare for. It's whenever possible, we try to keep things realistic, we try to keep things authentic, and making sure that all the details are accounted for. But if we needed to stretch something because it would make things a lot more fun to play, we weren't afraid to make that decision.
So what would be an example of something like that?
Oh my god, now I have to come up with a specific example. There's really a lot. They're a significant number of examples.
Would players, see the Sherman tank play like a Sherman tank in real life?
Yes. Yeah, I think a lot of ways, I think the way our units behave, the the characteristics of the weapons are very faithful to how they behave in real life. Like, you know, obviously some of the things we fudge are like, you know, reload rates and you know, rate of fire kind of stuff. But it's things that, you know, it's really hard to really know. You know, you won't be able to pick it out right off the bat.
Right. As long as it's fun too.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent.
Another really good example is being able to call in paratroopers.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
You know, actual paratrooper operations in World War II, there were a handful of them, right? But, you know, we figured it's so cool to be able to sort of call in paratroopers and, you know, behind enemy lines. We just figured, let's just let them do that whenever they want.
Right. So. That makes sense. What, in your opinion, is the best thing about the Essence engine? Does the Essence engine use true line of sight?
Yes. What's the best thing about the Essence engine? It's the Essence engine. No, I mean, it's really flexible. It looks phenomenal.
Can you maybe describe to people what the Essence engine is?
Sure.
Some of them might not know.
All right. So the Essence engine is sort of Relic's sort of next generation sort of RTS engine.
Right.
You know, and it's basically the goal for the Essence engine is to create a RTS engine that looks as good as a first-person shooter. So, you know, all the, you know, fancy graphical features that you see in, you know, next generation first-person shooters, you can see in Company of Heroes. You know, like we have normal mapping, vertex shaders, you know, HDR, all that kind of stuff that I'm sure Ian Thompson, our graphics programmer, can go on and on about. So the intent behind the Essence engine is to create not just an engine that looks as good as a first-person shooter, but one that really focuses on interaction.
Right.
So that's why we have like a high degree of environmental destruction. You know, we let the players sort of basically destroy everything on screen, and it really sort of open up sort of RTS gameplay to take advantage of those.
Awesome. So how did the name Company of Heroes come to be? Was there any inspiration for the title?
So Company of Heroes came to be, obviously we wanted to sort of capture a name that really sort of symbolized you know, what we wanted to do, really sort of focus on soldiers, you know, real battles, all that kind of stuff. So the name actually comes from sort of one of the closing lines in the Band of Brothers book. Stephen Ambrose's. I think they were asking, I forget exactly who they were asking, I think it was Winters. And, you know, his grandchild actually asked him, you know, so Daddy, you know, they find out that he was in a war, so Granddaddy, were you a hero? And he replied, no, but I served in a company of heroes. And we figured that sort of really epitomized what we're trying to do with Company of Heroes. We wanted an RTS, it was all about real soldiers and getting a sense that, you know, the players are actually sort of involved in the battles.
Definitely. So when you sit down and you start playing Company of Heroes, what is your favorite side to play?
Well, this is going to be a pretty typical answer, but I like playing all of them. You know?
Oh, come on, you have to pick
one. If I had to pick, I'm, my favorite thing to play is either the Allies or the Axis, but either the infantry tree on the Allied side or the defensive tree on the Axis side. The reason I like doing that is because I get to use a lot of my Army training.
Oh, right, yeah.
Because I used to be in the infantry, so I was an infantry sergeant. So I'm all about setting up really cutting, sort of like setting up my machine guns to cover my fronts and using the mortars to sort of back them up. So I get to use a lot of the infantry stuff I learned in the Army.
Awesome. That must be really cool seeing that come to life.
It is. It is really cool. I think it's cool to sort of do stuff that I did in the Army, like setting up a defense, and actually being able to do that in game.
Oh, for sure.
And it's just like, wow, it's a lot easier, and I don't get dirty.
How much functionality will the mod tools have?
So the mod tools, when we release them, will have essentially the same tools we use, right? So when we get around to designing a single player mission, you guys will have the same tools. You know, using the world builder to lay out the world.
Awesome.
We'll be using SCAR, which is our scripting language to actually set up events. If you guys want to do multiplayer maps, same thing. We'll be using the world builder. So we're busy working on all the documentation so you have to figure out how to use it.
Nice. So those are releasing later then, I'm guessing?
Yes.
Okay. How do those compare to the Dawn of War mod tools?
You will see a lot of parallels between the Dawn of War tools and our tools. Again, like I said, we have a sort of evolutionary process.
Right.
I realize. So the tools that we used on Company of Heroes were based on the Dawn of War tools.
Right.
So if you guys are used to the Dawn of War tools, you'll be able to migrate over into the Company of Heroes tools.
But these are just a little bit more advanced, a little
bit
more
well,
tweaked.
they're more advanced. They work with our engine. You know, there are some improvements we've made to them.
Awesome. Will there be an army painter in the retail version for multiplayer?
No.
Okay.
And the reason I say no is we actually spent a lot of time thinking about that, and that was one of my favorite features of Homeworld and Homeworld 2 and Dawn of War. Is like,
definitely.
You know, being able to customize your army so you have like, you know, the army you kind of want to play with. But when we thought about World War II and I really, as much as I love the freedom it gives players and the sort of personality they can sort of bring onto the screen, none of us were really keen about seeing pink Shermans fighting, cyan, Panzer IVs.
Yeah.
So
I would definitely use the pink. Yeah, definitely.
For sure, we wanted, it's really important for our game to sort of look really, atmosphere is really important. So, we decided at the end of the day that we wanted to keep the game looking as sort of realistic as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided not to.
Sounds good. What is the work team relationship between the lead designer, designers, balance team, and artists? So I guess, how do you interface with all these different groups?
All right, so the way sort of teams are organized at Relic is they're very collaborative. We just started using this process called Scrum, which basically means you have sort of little strike teams that work together. So in the single player strike team, you have single player designers, you have the world artists, you have some programmers, and basically what we try to do is give everybody all the tools that they need to actually accomplish their jobs, right? So a lot of the times that involves a lot of meetings and a lot of sort of back and forth and really chatting with the artists and the programmers. But it's not so much that the designers sort of work in their ivory tower and do their things and then they send their specs up to the programmers who then program that stuff up, and then they send that stuff to the artists to make it pretty. It's sort of at the beginning we sort of figure out, well, here's what we'd like to see done from a gameplay side, and we talk with the artists, and the artists go, okay, so this is kind of how we would like to sort of articulate this, and the programmer says, well, you guys can't do that. Programmers like to say they can't do that, and they surprise you by giving you more than you expected. So it's really collaborative environment.
Excellent. What is your relationship with the balance team in particular?
The balance team and the way the design team work, we're essentially we're complementary teams. It's what the design team sort of focuses on is sort of the conceptual work, coming up with the mechanics and sort of laying out the groundwork and seeing how we would like the game to play.
Mm-hmm.
And then we involve the play balance guys to make sure that the game's balanced and the game's sort of competitive. Because again, with an RTS, we think that I think our philosophy here is balance is important, but it's more important to have a fun and competitive game.
Right.
And the play balance guys, with all the experience that they have sort of playing all the games that they play, so really give us that sort of a different perspective and sort of help us sort of make sure that the game remains competitive and sort of really engaged to play at all levels, from casual to hardcore.
Awesome. Is there an integrated clan system still in the works?
I believe so. I can't. We have all these plans that can't divulge quite yet.
Yeah.
But we got big plans.
Awesome. What was the reasoning behind not allowing mirror matches?
So allowing mirror matches, so allowing the allies to fight the allies.
Exactly.
The Axis to fight the Axis. There were a number of reasons. I mean, first and foremost is Company Heroes is sort of built around the principle that it's an authentic World War II experience, and I think to be faithful to the genre and the type of game, I think it would be, allowing the allies to fight the allies, kind of sort of fight against that.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I think the main reason is we really want to create a team-based atmosphere. We wanted to have players sort of specialize and do a lot of team play tactics and stuff like that. So we found by having two separate sides, you can never play one at the same time, really encourages a lot more sort of team dynamics and sort of team play, and so that's really important for us.
Excellent. So here's some quick fire questions. Just answer them. First thing comes to mind, don't even think.
Right.
Sniper or MG crew?
MG crew.
Boxers or briefs?
Boxers.
Christina or Brittany?
Christina.
Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
Butter or margarine?
Oh my god. Doesn't matter.
You have to pick one.
Oh, I have to pick one. Butter.
PlayStation or Xbox?
Xbox.
Brains or looks?
Looks.
Shermans or tigers?
Tigers.
Awesome. And lastly, suppose there is a bloody free-for-all at Relic. Who would win?
Oh my god. Who would win? You have to pick somebody?
Yep.
Gee. I guess my money would definitely be between Chris Degnan, who's one of our single-player designers, and Andrew Chambers, who's the lead designer on Winter Assault.
Why is that?
Chris, because he's just, tall, big, and pretty intimidating. Andrew, because he's, a little Australian and is full of intensity, and he's just, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Josh. Thanks
Thank
for your
you.
time, and thank you to all the communities who have supported us so far.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, guys.